My name is Rhea. I'm a current senior at Cornell, and I'm also the founder and executive director of the Environmental Justice Coalition and a previous NOW Youth Awardee by the Children's Environmental Health Network.
And I'm Rozina Kanchwala. This is an incredible honor. Thank you all so much. I am Chicago based, which is the ancestral homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, as well as many other tribes that have called this place home. I am the founder and executive director of Eco.Logic. We're an arts-based environmental education nonprofit. I have been working on an organic farm this summer, and I work with the climate land leaders where we work to grow solutions from the ground up.
I'm Hannah Wilkerson. I am Children's Environmental Health Network's External Relations and Creative Manager.
So, Rosina, you mentioned that, especially because you're the awardee in media and arts, where do you find inspiration nowadays? And has there been anything like hiking, or you said you mentioned you worked on a farm? Yeah, or are there like various different sources throughout the year?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things when inspiration hits, you have to channel that. And yeah, inspiration comes in many ways. Sometimes it is taking a walk outside. I do love being outside. I love my daily walks. Lately, I've been meditating a lot more. So just kind of sitting and trying to find my center, and kind of tune out the chaos of the world has been helpful. And sometimes the climate anxiety that I feel makes for good um, art that comes from it. So it's a variety of things for sure.
And I think you just alluded to this a little bit, but could you elaborate on why you began addressing climate change through artistic endeavors and how your various projects have brought about support for climate resilience?
For sure. So my entire career has been in the environmental space. And, you know, a lot of times you feel like you're making one step forward, taking two steps back. And there's just a lot that while we're doing the work, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I think it just leads to feelings of anxiety, and it's the climate crisis and all these intersecting related issues as well. And, in 2018, I believe, I was living in DC, feeling a lot of climate anxiety, and just started writing and processing and trying to find humor through it all. Um, and that ended up turning into a play. And I don't have a theater production, so I wasn't sure that that was what the outlet was going to be. But it started off as sort of just a creative outlet, and it ended up being a full-on production at two different theater festivals, um, sold out every single show, with media coverage. And it really just led me to realize that there is an appetite here for climate work, climate education that brings comedy, that brings entertainment, that brings creativity, and that can help inspire people to take action. So that was kind of one of the things that really led me down this path. And then if we rewind several years before that, I'd been abroad for some years. And then when I came back to the States, just being surrounded by the amount of work that we need to do, I started creating curriculum, having had worked with different youth programs. And the goal was really, again, how do we make environmental education fun and how do we make it personal and actionable? And so, yeah, it really was creating this curriculum. We were able um, to run Camp Eco.Logic 3 times. This was down in Texas at the time, and just really centering what the students wanted to see come of this. And they wrote letters to their city council members. Then they went to city council and and shared what their thoughts were. And just having them walk away from that saying things like, "Oh, I didn't even know what this building was before. I didn't know I could go talk to the mayor." It was just such a cool way to see them get interested in an issue that was so close to home that they felt that they could be a part of. And so it was kind of the camps the plays that really led to the founding of Eco.Logic and the work that we do. And throughout all of that, I think the central piece is really building connections and building community because, as you all know, environmental work, when you're on your own, it's just not possible, and we're not going to individual action our way out of this, right? We need collective action. We need community to really build that resilience. And so our work really centers on creativity, on community, and on finding ways to take action.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. As also, I'm also based in DC. Like I grew up there, so I totally understand like growing up near or like even living near the capital, there's a lot of emotions that come along with it. And I know you briefly mentioned this, but what advice would you have for organizations like the Children's Environmental Health Network or even like mine, like the Environmental Justice Coalition, who are looking maybe to have more of these creative outlets and these creative approaches to the climate change movement and children's environmental health topics, especially in a time where climate change is being politicized and there's overall scientific distrust.
Yeah, well, I need all the advice as well, but here's what I can share is that, I think the amount of information that we all have access to is, I mean, overwhelming to say the least, right? But it is also incredible. And I think what this means is that kids see what's happening. We can't hide the realities from them. And what we need to do, I think, is be really mindful in how we engage with the youth on these really big intersecting issues. Because the amount of information is just too much. And to just consume it and not know what to do with it, I think can be detrimental. So I think really finding ways to help children channel and work in spaces is so important. And I think, again, building that community is so important. Um, and I think what's really unique about this moment is that, with the rise of social media, with all the good and the bad, I think that youth voices are now being amplified and being showcased. And I think that we really need to harness that and encourage kids to learn from and teach each other. And so those are some of the thoughts that I would share and try to do as well.
Thank you. So when you think through this, are there specific messages that you recommend or that you think we should be emphasizing?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to that example with the students in Texas, where helping them find their voice and showing that they have agency is crucial because I think it's really hard to just have anxiety and do nothing with it. And so I also think that the messages that are worth emphasizing are also the solutions. And there's so many solutions, right? And I think we all know there's no silver bullet here. We're going to have to it's a all hands on deck approach. And I think really being able to find joy in these various solutions is so important. So whether that is gardening, whether that is organizing, whether that is community engagement, just being able to showcase that there are pathways and then being able to model those effective pathways for the future. But I would say really emphasizing that the power that the youth have and collectively what they all can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like a student in college and so I run a youth group and so yeah, that is absolutely like one of the biggest messages that we try to get across and especially that's like maybe it's a little bit of an echo chamber, but that's all I see is like my peers and people in the environmental movement who are all young people, and everyone's just trying to make this collective push to like pass the baton, so to speak, so that youth feel empowered to make all these changes that they're envisioning. And so, as sort of a follow-up question. How do you think like what role I guess do you feel like, especially with like social media, as you mentioned, like graphic design, and we can see all these short form videos.
Mhm.
What role do you see or have you observed art and media play in the promotion of combating climate change, protecting children's environmental health, and overall messages like that?
Yeah, I'd say that the role that the arts play and the media can play is creating a cultural shift. We all know that we need policy changes, but policies don't happen in a vacuum. They happen when people demand change, and that can happen through this cultural shift. We have the technical solutions. We have the data. The data tells us what's wrong. The technical solutions can help us fix it. But it's the stories, the images, the theater, the creative expressions that I think move people. And that's really what we need. And I think it's, worth noting that the arts are often defunded. They are labeled as frivolous. Um, you know, and there's a reason for that, and it's because the arts are so powerful in changing perspectives. And so there's actually a quote, and it's something like art is not a mirror that we hold up to society, but it's a hammer with which we can shape it. And so I think that that's so powerful in recognizing that the arts can really create the change that we want to see and help create the world that we want to live in.
I love that quote. It's incredible. I'm gonna write that up and keep it close by so I can
Yeah.
remind myself of it.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. So this summer, when CEHN hosted this advocacy training series, a part of that was talking through storytelling as a strategy to really change hearts and minds and, engage in conversations, especially with decision makers that might not be as initially open as we would hope, recognizing that children's environmental health is nonpartisan but not apolitical, and thinking through like how do we connect as humans, and that is such an important piece of it. With that in mind, do you have any advice for these child health champions who have gone through this training, learning about taking advocacy actions and using storytelling? Um, what would you suggest for them as like a next step?
Yeah. Trying to think of what I haven't said already, but yeah, just kind of emphasizing that art and storytelling have taught me that people act when they feel something. And so my advice is to more than awareness, inspire feeling, use creativity. And that can be in so many ways. It can be story, theater, painting, song, dance, to help connect people to critical issues like children's environmental health. And, I think alongside urgency, which we need to convey, I think also finding joy is so important and building that connection, like helping people feel connected to each other, to a cause, because that's what's going to sustain engagement. I think a lot of people sometimes hear a statistic that is really alarming, and then it's sort of like, okay, after like a few weeks, they just kind of go back to their day to day. But when you're able to like build that connection and inspire and evoke those emotions, I think is when lasting engagement can happen to really create the change we need.
Rosina, it was so cool to hear about your thought process and especially your approach to incorporating art, media, and against the climate, like in the climate change movement. And yeah, very, very inspiring.
Thank you. And congratulations to you. I must admit, I need to look up what you do, but it's amazing. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both for making time to talk. We're really excited about this as a prelude to Children's Environmental Health Day next week, um, happening next Thursday, and really excited to, Rosina, see you there.
Yeah.
Um, and Rhea, thank you so much for helping to coordinate, put everything together.